Natural things are always good for you, right? Well, not always. There are plenty of natural things that can kill you, including rocks and minerals. Hey, I'm Chris Ralph, the professional prospector, and today we're going to talk about dangerous and deadly minerals that you don't want to find in the field. You know, some people like to lick rocks. They find a pretty rock and, they see how shiny it is. And you don't want to do that with these poisonous, deadly minerals. So let's get started on our list of rocks and minerals that can hurt you or kill you or make you at least very sick. And we're going to start out with Cinnabar, which is a mercury sulfide and a mercury ore. It's a deep red mineral that provides much of the world's mercury metal. It was used by the ancients as a pigment. They would mix it and make paint out of this beautiful orange-red mineral that they thought, oh, that was really great. And they'd even use it in special and sacred places. They also used it as a makeup on their face to make the ladies to make their cheeks bright red, right? A blush. Yeah, but you're using poison as a blush. Mercury is toxic to humans and has been a source of death from that crushed ore used as a pigment. Mercury vapors can be absorbed through the skin or inhaled as mercury fumes. Mercury can enter a food chain and become hazardous both to humans and animals. And even though it's poisonous to humans, we use it in fluorescent lighting. Yes, all fluorescent lights, neon lights and such, all have some mercury in them. And we use them because they're efficient and you get a lot of light for the amount of electricity you use, but you should be very careful with disposing of fluorescent light bulbs. In recent years, mercury mining has fallen due to the decline in global demand for mercury, and mercury from historic mines, or gold mines even, has entered into a number of watersheds across the western US. Let's take a look at some examples of Cinnabar.
Here's some real high-grade Cinnabar ore, mercury ore. You can see the bright red colors that attracted the ancient peoples to this stuff, even though it was toxic. Here's another sample. Nevada produced quite a bit of mercury ore back in the day, and there are scattered mercury mines around the state of Nevada and in other places, California as well. It's sometimes found in some types of gold deposits in small amounts as well. Cinnabar can also form beautiful crystals, as shown here. It makes for excellent mineral specimens too.
Our next mineral is Stibnite, and this is an antimony sulfide mineral. It makes for pretty crystal specimens, and it's found in some gold ores. Pastes of Stibnite powder have been used as a makeup. It's mixed with some fat or other material, and it's used as a darkener. Basically, it's eyeshadow, right? And it's not only used as a cosmetic, but it's also used as a medication, or at least it was. The antimony metal extracted from the stibnite was made into things like spoons and forks and that sort of thing. And so the toxicity of the antimony was then transferred to humans who were eating with antimony implements. Antimony can also cause problems with the lungs, the heart, and the stomach. Antimony is still used in many industries, not for eating. It's used to make flame-proof materials in some paints, glass, and batteries. Antimony is also alloyed with metals like lead to improve its durability. Both antimony and arsenic can accumulate in the body, and continual low levels of exposure can cause health problems. It's believed that the low-level chronic toxicity of both antimony and arsenic are due to the fact that they interfere with cellular metabolism. Let's take a look at some examples of stibnite.
Here's a really big cluster of stibnite crystals, and these things can be really valuable. This specimen in the middle there is about 20 inches long or so, and it's so valuable that it actually got stolen out of the museum that it was in after this picture was taken. It was later returned, but still, it's a valuable specimen. The crystals of stibnite are often pencil-shaped. They're dark gray like this. Here's another specimen of stibnite pencil crystals, and in this one though, something white has been deposited on them. I can't remember when I took this picture what the white material on the surface was, but you can see all these crystals arranged, and again, these are valuable specimens.
Our next mineral is Galena, and Galena is a lead sulfide. It's also the primary ore of lead metal. Galena in many places is also an important source of silver. The lead in Galena is toxic if it's inhaled or ingested through dust particles, but the mineral can be handled safely if there's no dust present. However, hands should be washed when handling Galena, as the hands can transfer dust even when no dust is visible. Too much lead in the body can cause lead poisoning, and the human body does not expel lead easily. Once you get it in, it kind of stays in for a long time. So lead can accumulate in the body's bones and soft tissues. If too much lead accumulates, it will damage the nervous system and cause brain disorders. Lead is toxic to many of the body's organs, including the heart, the kidneys, and intestines. Too much lead can cause headaches, confusion, seizures, and even death. So lead is a particularly dangerous chemical because of the fact that it can accumulate in an individual organism, but also in an entire food chain. Lead poisoning has been especially dangerous in children. Lead has been used widely since 5000 BC for application in a variety of metal products, including pipes. Let's take a look at some ores and examples of galena.
Galena is a medium gray metallic colored crystal that, if it has the space to grow into, will grow into cubic shapes just like shown here. But in ores, galena doesn't always take the nice cubic shape. Sometimes it's just massive spangles of this and that, as shown in this specimen. Now, it's these kinds of specimens that are more likely to have some silver in them, but the amount of silver varies a lot, from small to quite a bit. However, all of them are just as toxic.
Next, we're going to look at Anglesite, number 4. Anglesite is a weathering product from galena that normally forms as a byproduct. In fact, when galena weathers, it's exposed to air and water over long periods of time. It forms two products, and we're going to talk about both of them. One is Anglesite, and the next one is the mineral that we're going to talk about after this, Cerussite. Both minerals present a risk of pushing more lead into exposure to people and the wider world as a whole. Anglesite can form interesting crystals and therefore makes a good mineral specimen as well. Anglesite is a lead sulfate that's formed when the sulfur in galena is oxidized to sulfate. It's a minor ore of lead, but due to the high lead content and Anglesite's solubility in some acidic waters, Anglesite must be regarded as potentially hazardous to health. In the 15th through 18th centuries, lead sulfate was used as a freckle remover. Let's take a look at some examples of Anglesite.
Here's a specimen of Anglesite that formed into nice clear crystals. And sometimes they do make crystals like this, and when they do, of course, it's a very nice mineral specimen. The white to tan material in this specimen is pretty much the normal appearance of Anglesite. But this is a very unusual specimen in that through the weathering process, because both of these were originally galena, the lead in the galena and the silver in the galena separated. The gray matter on the left is a very rich silver mineral, whereas the white to tan is the nearly pure lead mineral. It's just part of the natural weathering process.
Our next mineral is the other weathering product from galena, Cerussite. Cerussite is a popular mineral specimen because of its attractive crystals, and it makes bizarre complex twins and has a bright yellow fluorescence. It's another characteristic oxidation product of the common lead sulfide, galena. Cerussite is virtually insoluble in water, but dissolves easily in dilute nitric acid and partly dissolves in other dilute acids. And the soluble lead that results when it dissolves is very toxic. There's only one primary use of Cerussite, and that's as a minor lead ore. And as I said, lead and its related compounds were misused for generations before the intrinsic health hazards were fully appreciated. Children are at the greatest risk as lead delays physical and mental development. In adults, slow accumulation of lead can result in kidney and nervous system damage, anemia, stroke, and even cancer. Let's take a look at some examples of Cerussite.
Cerussite is a soft, dense, light-colored mineral that usually forms in needle-like crystals and is closely associated with lead ores. The needles of Cerussite are usually kind of fragile, but it can form some really beautiful specimens, as in this piece.
Our next minerals we're going to talk about is the asbestos minerals. Now, there's not just one kind of asbestos. There's actually several different kinds, but two kinds are the kind that are mostly used in buildings and construction and that kind of stuff that you would see or come into contact with. If you're out in the wild, there's several rare kinds of asbestos, but we're going to focus on the two that are most common, and that's chrysotile and amosite. Now, you've likely heard of asbestos, and you know that it has a close association with lung cancer. Asbestos is actually, like I say, a group of silicate minerals that grow in thin, long fibers that can easily break off and form dust particles. It's these little fibers that make it so dangerous, as they get stuck in the very smallest part of your lungs, the alveoli, where actually the oxygen and your blood come together, and your blood takes oxygen out of the air. The little needles poke the sac of your lungs, and then they can't get out. They get stuck there. And as you breathe, it irritates the lining of your lungs, and that physical damage is what eventually causes cancer. Despite its usefulness as an insulation, fire-resistant, fire-retardant thing, sound absorption, the mineral dust is so deadly if inhaled that the use of asbestos has gone way down. So let's talk about chrysotile, which is by far the most common. About 95% of what you might encounter in building and construction, or really even in life, especially in California, are going to be chrysotile. It's formed through the serpentine alteration of ultramafic rocks like peridotite and silicified dolomitic limestones. It's commonly associated with large bodies of serpentine, especially in California. In the serpentine, it occurs as bands and veinlets in a lizardite matrix. Chrysotile asbestos is prized for its heat resistance property, its flexible fibers, and that it can be woven into an actual fabric. Chrysotile asbestos is used in a variety of construction products, including asbestos insulation and fireproofing. They actually used to mine quite a bit of it in California, and I'll tell you a little story. Years ago, when I was a student in college, they took us around to see a number of mines. We went in gold mines and other mines. But one of the mines we went to see that they took us to see was an asbestos mine. Now, I was kind of lucky. It poured rain that day, and so when we went in the open pit mine where they mined the rock that they extracted the asbestos from, there was no dust that day. There was just thick, deep mud. But we did go in the plant where they actually extracted the asbestos out of the rock. They crushed the rock, and they actually extracted the asbestos by blowing it off the rock. And of course, airborne is how you get asbestos into your lungs. You breathe it. As long as asbestos stays on the wall or stays in the flooring or whatever other place, as long as it stays where it is, it's not really a hazard. It's not going to evaporate off the wall and get in your lungs. It's a rock. It doesn't evaporate like that. So as long as it stays in place, it's not a danger. It's when it becomes a dust particle, which is usually associated with some sort of demolition or other breaking up of materials, breaking them and causing dust, right? Anyway, we were in this plant where they extracted the asbestos, and we went all through it, and you know, it wasn't a long tour. We were in there maybe half hour, 45 minutes. But I saw the inside of the plant. Years later, I was taking a course. Actually, I took a course about asbestos and the hazards of asbestos, and they showed a picture of the inside of this plant. And it was a going away party or something for one of the employees that worked in the plant. I didn't recognize any of them, but because it'd been years and years. But they had this group. It was about 20 guys that worked in this plant, and it was some kind of, like I say, going away party. The guy who was leaving or retiring or something. And they took this picture of the group, you know, everybody's there. And the guy that was giving the course says, we were able to track all of the people that were in this photograph except one. One guy moved away shortly afterwards, and nobody kept in touch with him for very long, and he kind of disappeared, and we don't know what happened to him. But the other 19 or so, whatever there was, 20, 22, something like that, they were able to track all of them. Every single one, 100% of them, got lung cancer and asbestosis from exposure to the chrysotile dust. Needless to say, that mine is long closed and no longer operates. It was in the California foothills near a place called Copperopolis, if you know where that is. It just goes to show you, if you breathe enough asbestos, it will cause cancer. Let's take a look at some examples of chrysotile.
This is chrysotile asbestos. You can see the fibers in it real easily, and you can also see that it forms in little veins like this in the rock. Here's another shot of chrysotile asbestos, and you can see again the little tiny fibers, even some of the ones that are starting to break off of the main vein. This is just a vein structure and doesn't show any of the actual host rock. This is a specimen of chrysotile that I took a picture of just in a road cut in the Serpentine area of the Mother Lode country of California. You can see that the fibers are there, and it's just naturally occurring on the side of a hill. They've done tests, and where you have dirt roads that go across these areas of this type of rock, they've measured the dust of the dirt roads, and there's a good amount of asbestos in it.
Next, we're going to look at Amosite, which is also one of the asbestos minerals. It's the lesser but still common type of thing to see in various types of building construction materials. It's also known as brown asbestos, and it's considered the most hazardous of the types of asbestos. In other words, it's as hazardous as chrysotile is. Amosite is even more hazardous. Amosite is formed from a magnesium-rich amphibole mineral through hydrothermal alteration, and in that sense, it's kind of formed similarly to chrysotile. It's primarily mined in South Africa, and amosite is characterized by large, sharp, brittle, needle-like fibers that can easily be inhaled. Amosite makes up about 5% of the asbestos materials that are used in building and construction in the United States. It's the second most common type of asbestos. Let's take a look at an example of amosite asbestos.
You can see in this amosite sample that its fibrous nature is very similar to that of chrysotile. The fibers are a little bit longer. You can also see why it's sometimes called brown asbestos, because chrysotile tends to be more gray-green. The fibers of the amosite also tend to be longer. But this is the other common type of asbestos.
All right, let's take a look at number 7, arsenopyrite. Now, pyrite is a common mineral, but there's a form of it called arsenopyrite in which it's not, regular pyrite is iron and sulfur, but arsenopyrite is arsenic, iron, and sulfur. And so arsenic is a sulfide mineral with a silver or steel metallic color that's often found in quartz veins and gold deposits. It looks similar to pyrite, but it has this silver rather than gold colored tone. Arsenic leads to a number of environmental and human damages. Oxidation of arsenopyrite can lead to soluble forms of arsenic that are especially poisonous. They can drain into the groundwater and create toxic acid mine drainage. Arsenopyrite is one of the most common arsenic minerals, but arsenic is found in a whole host of different minerals and is generally associated with sulfur and sulfur-type mineral deposits, metal deposits. Arsenic has a variety of commercial uses, from industrial, like metallic alloys, to agricultural in pesticides, and it's commonly used in the manufacture of semiconductors. Let's take a look at some examples of arsenopyrite.
Here's a bit of arsenopyrite that I picked up at an old prospect pit in Western Australia when I was visiting Western Australia. It's heavy and has a metallic luster, and like I say, looks similar to pyrite except for its silvery color rather than the normal golden that you see with pyrite. Here's another specimen with arsenopyrite. It's the silver gray material toward the front. Arsenopyrite is closely associated with many gold deposits, and I've seen many gold-bearing veins that have arsenopyrite among the minerals in it.
Next we have number 8, Realgar and orpiment. Now you're going to say, Realgar and orpiment are two different minerals. Well, yes they are, but they're very, very similar chemistry-wise, and they're very similar and closely related and often occur in the same deposit. They're both arsenic sulfide minerals. At least arsenopyrite has iron and sulfur in it, whereas Realgar and orpiment are just arsenic and sulfur. They occur together in the same kinds of deposits and have very close to the same chemistry, like I say. Arsenic minerals, especially if allowed to oxidize, will lead to arsenic poisoning if handled incorrectly. Orpiment is an arsenic sulfide mineral with a stunning orange-yellow color, and the mineral is found naturally in epithermal deposits. Strangely, this mineral was used medicinally in China until relatively recently. Orpiment was also used in the Middle Ages as part of the makeup to try and turn gold into lead. I guess they thought that the orpiment, which has this yellow gold kind of color, could somehow transfer the color part of it to lead to turn lead into gold. On the other hand, Realgar is an arsenic sulfide mineral with a brilliant red color. Well-formed Realgar crystals look so much like red gemstones that the mineral was once called ruby arsenic. Both Realgar and orpiment saw their earliest widespread use as a pigment for paints, for inks, and for dyes. These minerals were often traded across great distances because they were considered valuable. After their toxicity was discovered in the Middle Ages, their use as a pigment declined. People then took advantage of their toxicity to use it as a poison for insects and rodents. Deposits of Realgar and orpiment are found frequently associated with lead, silver, gold, and other arsenic minerals. The Great Carlin deposits of Nevada sometimes have very large amounts of arsenic in them. There's one that is in Nevada that you can actually see from Google Earth. You can see the red of the Realgar in the pit that they're mining. Let's take a look at some examples of Realgar and orpiment.
Here's an example of orpiment with its bright yellow orange color. You can see why people were attracted to it, but you look at this and it's mostly arsenic. This specimen of orpiment is actually from a large and very productive gold mine in Nevada, a big open pit mine that's produced more than 1 million ounces of gold. You can see it produced a lot of gold, but it also produced significant arsenic too. Here's a beautiful, well-crystallized specimen of Realgar. You can see the beautiful ruby red crystals. Although the color is quite different, the mineral Realgar and orpiment are very closely related. Here's another specimen of Realgar from a different part of the world. They're closely associated in many cases with gold and silver and other metal mines.
Next, we're going to talk about uranium minerals. The radioactive element uranium exists in very small amounts, parts per million, in many different kinds of rocks and minerals. The minerals that are mined for uranium include autunite, carnotite, monazite, samarxite, uranite, and pitchblende. Other common uranium-bearing minerals include betaphyte and tobernite. Uranium is mined in Canada, Australia, Namibia, Nigeria, South Africa, and the USA. All uranium products are radioactive, and it decays through a series of elements into lead. One of the decay products of uranium is radium, and radium decays to release a colorless, odorless radioactive gas called radon, which is the second leading cause of lung cancer after smoking. The most common ore of uranium is uranite, which is mined in a variety of ways, including open pit. It's also mined underground and actually in situ leach mining sometimes, where they use alkalides or acids to extract the mineral in place and then draw it out through a well. Uranium is used to make bombs and to fuel nuclear reactor plants, and a number of other uses. Uranium is not only dangerous because of its radioactivity, but also because it's chemically poisonous to humans. Exposure to uranium may cause irreversible kidney damage, and inhalation of large particles of uranium dust may result in radiation damage to internal tissues, especially the lungs and the bones. Let's take a look at some examples of uranium minerals.
This bright yellow material is carnotite, which is the chief uranium mineral in the mines in the United States. It's an important ore of uranium, but also a minor ore of vanadium. This is autunite, a minor ore of uranium, but one that's a little bit more common than some of the others. It just doesn't occur in large deposits. This dense, dark black material is pitchblende, the world's most important ore of uranium. It's the chief ore mined in Canada and many other places around the world, but just looking at it as a dark-colored specimen, it looks like so many other different kinds of minerals and rocks.
Last on our list of deadly and dangerous minerals are thorium minerals. Thorium is another radioactive element, and thorium is naturally occurring and is found in small amounts in rocks and minerals. Thorium is widely distributed in nature and occurs in relatively small amounts of thorium-enriched minerals. These minerals include thorite, thoronite, monazite, bastnasite, and thorogumite. All thorium is radioactive, and inhaling thorium mineral dust increases the risk of lung and pancreatic cancer. Individuals exposed to thorium have an increased risk of bone cancer because thorium can be stored in the bones. The main world resources of thorium are found in the minerals monazite and bastnasite. Monazite is basically a mineral that occurs in small amounts in granitic rocks, and through weathering, the monazite doesn't weather or decay. It continues on downstream, whereas common minerals like feldspar or mica turn to clays and wash away. The monazite accumulates in placer deposits. And indeed, if you look for gold in the Idaho Basin area of Idaho, you'll find that with your gold, you have what they call a heavy yellow sand. And that yellow sand is the radioactive mineral monazite. Monazite-enriched placer sand deposits occur mainly in India, Brazil, Australia, and the USA. Other commercially interesting deposits of thorium are coupled with bastnasite, a mineral mined from carbonatite deposits, especially from Banyan Obo deposit in China. Bastnasite is a rare earth mineral. Actually, monazite has a lot of rare earths in it too, but bastnasite is mined principally for its rare earth content. Both bastnasite and monazite are rare earth minerals that contain significant amounts of thorium in them. Unlike uranium, there's really very little potential market for thorium. Most of what is used is a byproduct of rare earth mining. Thorium can potentially be used in nuclear reactors, and in India, which has large thorium reserves in the form of monazite sands, is exploring the possibility of using thorium for a nuclear reactor to generate electricity. Let's take a look at some examples of thorium minerals.
This is a crystal of monazite. It's a rare earth mineral with significant thorium in it. It's often this color, which is similar to garnet, but its crystal shape is very different from garnet. However, larger pieces of monazite like this are quite rare. Instead, what's more common is this, a heavy beach sand. Now, the mineral does not weather away, and it occurs as tiny grains in a lot of different igneous rocks like granite, and as the rocks weather, the sand moves down and accumulates as heavy deposits along beaches. The other important thorium mineral is this, bastnasite, which is another rare earth mineral that has significant thorium in it. And again, nice crystals like this are quite rare. Here the bastnasite is in the reddish-brown clots in solid rock. This is a bit of ore from a rare earth mine at Mountain Pass in California.
It's easy to forget how toxic our natural world can be, and thinking of rocks and minerals, you normally think of them as inert, but they can actually be deadly, as we've kind of explored in this video. Licking rocks that can happen to look interesting can increase the hazard in a big way. With a keen eye to an understanding of toxicity, you can help identify the deadly minerals that you might encounter. Some of these rocks and minerals are fairly common, but others of them are pretty darn rare. Still, it's possible that you could come across them, especially while out rock hounding or exploring old mining areas. Many of my videos are about prospecting for gold, and knowledge is the key to finding gold nuggets. What you know makes all the difference, and that's why I wrote a book, to give you my decades of experience in prospecting for gold and other related minerals. My book is an encyclopedia of prospecting, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about my book right now. So let me tell you a little bit more about my book. It's called Fistful of Gold, and I wrote it because I want you to be able to go out and find for yourself Fistful of Gold. And you can see that it's an encyclopedia with all kinds of information, pictures, and that sort of thing. It's not in color, but color would have cost me a lot more to have printed, and so the book would have cost a lot more. It's for sale on Amazon, and you can pick it up. I'll put a link in the description below. I also serve as the editor for a prospecting magazine. It's ICMJ's Prospecting and Mining Journal. And honestly, you should check that out. We got stories and information, legal stuff, everything you know to increase your skills as a prospector. I write articles in this every month, and a lot of other very experienced prospectors contribute to the magazine as well. So check the magazine out. Also, I have a website, and the website is at NevadaOutbackGems.com. I'll put a link for it in the description below, but there's gobs of information there that you will find useful in your prospecting efforts. Finally, I want to say that I really appreciate your comments and thoughts, and even positive criticism. Don't come on there and just toss out insults, because I'll just delete your comments. But if you've got helpful things to say and questions to ask, do write and put those in the comments, because I answer my comments to people, and you'll hear from me in responding to you. So if you've enjoyed this video and you like what you see and you're interested in finding out more, well then sign up, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so they'll let you know when I post new videos. And like it and share it if again you see stuff that you really are excited about. And I'll be coming out with lots more new videos, and so we'll see you again real soon.